investor friends, I'm Michelle Markey, and remember when I talked about my reactions to Charlie Munger at the 2023 Daily Journal Corporation's annual meeting? Well, I said that I would create probably more videos about Charlie Munger's wisdom, and today is one of those videos where I've curated Charlie Munger on exactly why he believes Alibaba ended up being one of his worst investment mistakes. And while he says that and explains the rationale why, he juxtaposes that with the thought that you can actually buy better and stronger companies at a cheaper valuation in China compared to the US sometimes. And he talked about how BYD, an electric vehicle company, was one of those examples. So it's interesting why he turned out to have such a negative attitude about his Alibaba investment on behalf of Daily Journal Corporation. So it makes me wonder if at the next 13F filing that will probably come out in early April for DJCO, if they may have sold Baba or if they're still continuing to hold on to it despite Charlie's mistake, because they're maybe just going to see it through and see if it recovers somewhat someday. But overall, he seemed to turn pretty sour in that. And it makes you wonder because one of his favorite companies is Costco, which is also a retail giant, like one of my friends talked with me about. And so it makes you wonder, how come he still loves Costco but seems to despise Alibaba now? So that is just some food for thought, but we'll just have to kind of see what happens in the coming years and future with both what Daily Journal ends up deciding with this investment and also what ends up happening to the future of Alibaba, because even though we know there's way more competition in the e-commerce space in China and they're just starting to open up from all the lockdowns they had, you would think that the future should get better for Alibaba, especially if they can figure out how to get the cloud business really going, much like how Amazon has had much success with their AWS in the US, even while keeping pretty razor-thin margins with their e-commerce business themselves. So without further ado, if you enjoy studying Charlie Munger and some of his investment decisions and wisdom, I hope you'll like and subscribe, and let's watch the following.
So Chris Freed writes in from Philadelphia and says, you've said previously that you should destroy at least one good idea that you have each year. What good idea did you destroy in 2022 and anything in 2023 so far?
Well, the idea that I destroyed, it wasn't a good idea, it was a bad idea. When the internet came in, I got overcharmed by the people who were leading in the online retailing, and I didn't realize it's still retailing. You know, it may be online retailing, but it's also still retailing. And I got a little out of focus, and that made me overestimate the future returns from Alibaba, and so I have never gotten so I eliminate mistakes.
I think I just lost Charlie's audio.
Well, I do those. Sure I keep rubbing my own nose in my own mistakes like I am doing now because I think it's good for myself.
I can't hear. Charlie, this question comes from Michael Gallagher. He says, according to company filings, it appeared that Alibaba shares were purchased with leverage, and when the stock price fell last year, he was seemingly forced to sell, he being you. Can you ask Charlie to confirm that it was bought with leverage? And if so, why would he do that, as it seems to go against his philosophy? I got several questions that were similar to that.
Well, yes, it's true. I operated with no leverage for long stretches of my old age. And Warren's the same way. And recently I did use a little bit of leverage here and in another place, because the opportunities were so ridiculously good, I thought it was desirable to do that. So you're right, it's unusual for us, but we did find a few things. And by the way, if you go back early in my career, I used some leverage. I sometimes ask myself a mental question. I say, what is the appropriate percentage of your net worth you should put it in the stock if you think it's an absolute cinch? Well, if you're the kind of fellow who's right and when you think something is a cinch, the answer is 100%, or maybe 150%. But nobody teaches people to think that way in finance. But if the opportunity is great enough, the logical answer is 100%, or maybe 200%.
Somebody else wrote in, and I don't have the email in front of me at the moment, but he wrote in quoting you, where you said the three things that ruin people are ladies, liquor, and leverage. So why would you use leverage when you know that's one of the three things that can destroy somebody?
Well, I used a little on my way up, and so did Warren, by the way. The Buffett partnership used leverage regularly every year of its life. What Warren would do was he would buy a bunch of stocks, and then he'd borrow against those stocks, and he'd buy into these, they used to call it event arbitrage, liquidations, mergers, and so forth. And that was didn't go up and down with the market. That was like an independent banking business. And Ben Graham's name for that type of investment, he called them Jewish treasury bills. And it always amused me that that's what he would call them. But Warren used leverage to buy Jewish treasury bills when on the way up, and it worked fine for him. I don't think either of us ever buys. Well, no. Berkshire has stock in Activision Blizzard, and you can argue that that's whether that'll go through or not. I don't know, but that's a Jewish treasury bill.
Arbitrage. The arbitrage play on Activision?
Well, yes, event arbitrage. I mean, but we sort of stopped doing it because it's such a crowded place. But here's little Berkshire doing it again in Activision Blizzard, and Munger using a little leverage at the Daily Journal Corporation.
So is
you
leverage?
Can argue that I use that leverage to buy BYD. You can argue that's the best thing I've ever done for the Daily Journal.
So is leverage the least evil of the three L's?
I think most people should avoid it, but maybe not everybody need play by those rules. I have a friend who says, the young man knows the rules and the old man knows the exceptions.
All right, another question.
At least if he's lived right, he knows them.
Yeah. Another question comes in from Brandon McKee. He's also asking about some of the situations with Alibaba. He said, how should investors view geopolitical events in regards to their investment in foreign countries? How do you look at the situation of the recent Chinese spy balloon in regards to the Alibaba investment?
Well, of course, it was a very interesting thing. Jack Ma was a dominant capitalist in Alibaba. And one day he got up and made a public speech where he basically said the Communist Party is full of malarkey. They don't know their ass from their elbow. They're no damn good, and I'm smart. And of course, the Communist Party didn't particularly like his speech. And pretty soon he just sort of disappeared from view for months on end. And now he's out of BYD. It was pretty stupid. It's like poking a bear in the nose with a sharp stick. It's not smart. And Jack Ma got way out of line by popping off the way he did to the Chinese government. And of course it hurt Alibaba. But I regard Alibaba as one of the worst mistakes I ever made. In thinking about Alibaba, I got charmed with the idea of their position on the Chinese internet. And I didn't stop to realize they're still a goddamn retailer. It's going to be a competitive business, the internet. It's not going to be a cakewalk for everybody.
Just about China in general, I had a lot of questions that came in regarding that. I'll ask this one from Wilco Schutzendorf. It's coming in from Walnut Creek, California, who just said, previously you stated that despite certain shortcomings, China was generally moving in the right direction. However, with the recent actions taken by the Chinese government, such as capriciously punishing technology and educational companies, declining to import effective COVID vaccines, escalating threats towards Taiwan, do you still maintain that China is a viable investment option for foreign capital, or is China experiencing a similar regression as Russia has seen under Putin's leadership that culminates in the invasion of Taiwan?
Well, that's a very good question, of course, but I would argue that the chances in a big confrontation from China have gone down, not up, because of what happened in the Ukraine. I think that the Chinese leader is a very smart, practical person. And it doesn't, Russia went into the Ukraine because it looked like a cakewalk. I don't think Taiwan looks like such a cakewalk anymore. I think it's off the table in China for a long, long time. And I think that helps the prospects of investors who invest in China. And the other thing that helps in terms of the China prospects are that you can buy better, stronger companies at a cheaper valuation in China than you can in the United States. So you're getting the extra risk can be worth running given the extra value you get. That's why we're in China. It isn't like we prefer being in some foreign country. Of course, I'd rather be in Los Angeles right next to my house. It'd be more convenient. But I can't find that many investments, right next to my house.
Just to follow up on that, Alex writes in, Alex Formansky, I'm sorry, it's very small print, writes in, how have political events in China over the last few months affected your thinking on the country? Several people, including me, were taken aback by the forceful withdrawal of former President Hu Jintao at the October 22 annual Congress. President Xi seems to have consolidated power, and his actions have indicated that he thinks very differently about the role of business in Chinese society.
Well, I have more optimism about the leader of the Chinese party than most people do. He's done a lot right, too. And he led a big anti-corruption drive. He's done a lot of things right. So, and I don't know where this man lives. Where is there a place where the government is perfect in a world of sin and sorrow? The democracies aren't that brilliantly run either. So it's natural to have some decisions made by government that don't work well. It's natural to have decisions in each individual life that don't work very well. We live in a world of sin, sorrow, and misdecision. That's what human beings get to cope with in their days of life. So I don't expect the world to be free of folly and mistakes and so forth. And I just hope I'm invested with people who have more good judgment than bad judgment. I don't know anybody who's right all the time.